And welcome. Welcome to the Department of Film and Media Studies at Dartmouth College and our culminating senior showcase for the day. We have an amazing lineup of projects all day long and going into the evening, but we're going to start off with a game walkthrough of a game called Existential Bummer by Elinor Dooley, who is going to join us with a player, Sam West, who will be showing the game, and we'll have a conversation about games, the origin story about this game, and a whole bunch of other things about the meaning of life, really. And that's what we'll be doing. So welcome, Julie. Yay. This is your senior culminating project. Let's talk about the origin story of this game. How did this come about?
All right, so the classic beginner question. I think I kind of started off the idea by contemplating like the replayability of games and how every time you're playing a game and you die, you basically go back to the same start screen over and over again and the entire story resets. But I kind of led with the question of, well, what if not the entire story reset? What if your character still got to remember everything that you had done in the past? So it kind of went from there.
Interesting. And when did you start thinking about doing this project?
I was in an English class with Aiden Evans sometime last year, I think, winter maybe. And one of the projects was to come up with a video game idea, and that's the idea that I came up with. So I've been thinking about it for a while, actually.
Great. Well, what are we going to do today in terms of our experience? What are we going to get to see?
Yeah, so I've got one of my good friends playing the game for us. It's completely text-based, so there'll be a lot of reading involved, unfortunately. We'll try to pace things out in case anybody wants to go through the trouble of reading every single line, and there's a lot of lines. So, but mostly we're just going to be bopping through. There's a lot of choices that the player will be making. She has absolutely no experience with this game yet. But I guess, so backtracking a bit, one of the most important parts of this game for me was the ability to make different choices, and that will decide what happens later, or how your character develops and how you develop the things you see. So we'll be seeing what kind of choices she makes along the way.
Okay, so why don't we go find Sam? Hey, Sam, welcome. All right, Sam, so we're going to, you've never played this game. You're just finding out about it now. And tell us a little bit about your background. You're not a film and media studies major.
No, I'm a theater major at school, actually.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Great. All right. So you will be our guide as we start up Existential Bummer, a game by Elinor Dooley.
All right. Are we good to go?
Yeah.
All right.
Start it, and then we'll be talking over the game as we move forward. I believe Dooley may be frozen.
Okay.
But hopefully not for long.
All right.
These things happen.
Can you see it?
Yes.
Great. Okay.
Okay, chapter 1. Do you want to just give us a little bit of a flavor and by doing a reading here? A little bit?
Sure. All right.
Just to start us off.
Chapter 1, Laplace's Demon. A thing about life. We are going to die, and that makes us the lucky ones. Most people are never going to die because they are never going to be born. The potential people who could have been here in my place, but who will in fact never see the light of day, outnumber the sand grains of Sahara. Certainly those unborn ghosts include greater poets than Keats, scientists greater than Newton. We knew this. Oh, okay, in the bathroom.
Did you get click happy? Okay, so check this out. So it's written as a script, actually. which I think is pretty interesting. We have an introductory setting. So even though the game is a text-based game, we're seeing a lot of tropes in terms of theater, actually, which maybe Sam, you didn't know was coming. And for those of you who are watching, we're waiting for Dooley, the maker of this game, Existential Bummer, a senior culminating project at Dartmouth College, to come back to the stream because she has been booted off of the stream by a technical glitch. But she's coming back. We'll just have to wait. But we don't have to wait to play because it's a really interesting game.
I love that this Burning Man is happening.
Right, so this is a game set in Burning Man. That's what you're gathering. You're meeting someone.
That's so funny. Because my dad goes to Burning Man all the time.
So you have a set of characters who are at Burning Man. Hey, welcome back.
Yeah.
We've just been looking where we realized we're at Burning Man in this game.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah, so we realized this. So how did you come up with, the setting and why is this format like a script? Why is script? Because it is quite interesting to read it that way. It doesn't, when you think of a computer game, this kind of treatment isn't necessarily the first thing that might come to someone's mind.
Yeah, I think so speaking towards the formatting first, my intention for this culminating was for it to be for like a fuller game later, more realized, with 3D art and controller mechanics and things like that. So this is pretty much a script for what I imagine would be the recorded dialogue and kind of the most basic actions and happenings that would happen around the scene. So I tried to keep things kind of loose, and that's why when I was playtesting, I got a lot of questions about why in some of the character introductions, like their age was next to their name, and that's just like kind of common screenwriting practice. So it is kind of very much like a screenplay. It's just playable.
It's a playable screenplay. So that's really great. Yes. So would you say that's much easier to make
than a full game? Definitely. If I had tried to make a full game by myself, I probably would not be graduating on Sunday. It takes
seriously. It is true that the scope and scale of your story would require quite a large game, right? Yeah. I mean, when you sit down to think about all of the options, if you were going to play through, we're only doing one chapter.
Yeah, and there are three.
How much of an experience would this be for a player?
If they were playing the whole text-based like screenplay version of the game, I mean, when I've tested it with people like with the full game and all the branching dialogue and everything, it can take maybe an hour and a half, maybe a bit longer if they're really going back and trying to see what everything looks like and what all the different options are. So it takes a lot of time, and translating that into a fuller game that's not completely text-based. I mean, this was daunting enough for me. There's a lot of stuff to keep track of. And I'm still working on it, still workshopping it. So, but
what do you have to keep track of for those people out there who have never designed a game? Like, what do you have to track?
Okay, so since there are so many different options that you could make and like choices that you have, each choice has a different outcome. So I need to keep track of what choices the characters made, and I also keep track of. I guess I can't spoil it, or I don't want to spoil it, but I keep track of certain numbers of what passages you've been to or what passages you haven't been to and how many times certain things have happened.
Right.
Which was really this format, the software that I used to make it, which is Twine. It's completely free software and it was really cool to use. It afforded me a lot of opportunities to kind of play with the number of times that someone might visit a certain passage. And change things based on that.
This flirty guy. Sorry.
I didn't give them names. I feel like their intentions are clearer. But yeah, so then with the setting of the game, I struggled so much with this, and Mary knows this, because when I first came out with the idea, when I first came out with the idea, Russian Doll had not come out yet. And the setting for that was pretty similar to what I had originally planned for the game. And then that came out and I was like, oh God, I can't use this setting anymore. It's too well known, and it's too done. So I had to think of something completely different. And Mary and I brainstormed for a bit and thought of like what would be a cool way to give reasoning to interacting with people, because I felt like if you were entering, a normal standard world, the way that we live it, we don't really interact with strangers a whole lot, or like we'll go up and talk to them. So I had to give some incentive. Oh yeah, we're getting to that.
I've fallen over the edge of the scaffolding. Sorry.
Yeah, and you died.
Oh no.
So tell us more. Did we just die?
Yeah, you did just die. So this is why I couldn't use that setting for Russian Doll, because it became essentially the same idea. And what I kind of took from the origins of the idea of the game for how people, when they replay games and they die, everything restarts. This time the character dies, but everything restarts around her, but she gets to remember everything that's happened. So yeah, you died, and there are many opportunities for you to die in this game. It kind of lends a different kind of conceptual lens towards looking towards the choices that you make and whether you want to go back and redo them or something like that.
So interesting. So let's get a sense of this dialogue. There is some foul language, so we could actually just put out a cautionary moment to our listeners that there may be some profanity. It is a real lifey kind of dialogue. So do we want to kind of get a sense of the voice here?
Yeah. So narrative voice, I don't want to say that this is just how I talk normally. It might be that all these characters are just kind of different versions of me and my speech patterns. But I hope I don't swear as much as all these characters do. But so I think it wasn't really one of my top challenges coming up with the narrative tone. It seemed to just kind of flow for me. And that's why I think it probably does come from my personal experiences with talking as a talking person. But I think it was made more apparent and became harder to balance with this script style and kind of making sure that all the characters sounded unique and sounded different. It was really difficult. But I feel like I accomplished it. I feel like they all have some kind of distinct thing to say and way of saying
things. Yes, definitely. I'm really interested in who these people are. Do you want to give us a sense of the scene?
Yeah, okay. So our main character, Sarah Coates, last name taken from a friend of mine, a 19 who graduated. I hope she's not watching this and knows that I stole her last name. But yeah, the main character, Sarah Coates, she's kind of a feather drifting through the wind, not really sure what she's doing in life, not really sure where she's going, and is kind of stuck in the way that she's living. Sorry, getting distracted by Sam playing.
I'm okay this time?
Yeah, something changed.
What did I do? Oh my God. Okay.
So that's kind of her character, and I wanted, since she's the main character, obviously she has to go through some growth. Still trying to work on if I'm hitting that or not, but she does kind of start as this nothing to do, nowhere to go type of character, relatively meek. When I was actually first writing these characters and trying to figure out what drove them and kind of what their backbones were, I started thinking about most basically like how they would say hi. Like from a distance, how would they say hi to a friend?
Right. Like that's the sense of encounter is how you started framing them as a character. Huh,
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. And how I imagined Sarah doing it was just like a quick wave of just hi. So she doesn't really put herself out there or have a lot of like passion in her actions. Versus a character like Haley, she's very exuberant, very sure of herself and confident, but that kind of becomes a downfall to her. She's so prideful. And I had a lot of trouble writing Haley as a character because it was hard to get into her headspace. And once I started thinking more about narrative structure, and I watched this great TED Talk by the creator of Toy Story, he talked about how there are conditions for personality. Like in Toy Story, Tom Hanks's character Woody is a great leader, a great toy. He's nice to his friends and he's loyal as long as he is top toy. Once that condition is no longer met, he changes. And that idea really helped me define these characters of, oh, okay, this is their breaking point. This is what keeps them nice and kind and happy. And if that is broken, then what are they like?
Interesting. Great. So, so they do develop though. They do change, you think?
Yeah, I mean, I hope so. Yeah, 3 chapters in the game. I hope they change a little bit, become a little more nuanced, a little more defined.
Yeah. So who is this game for? Who's going to play this game?
I had not actually really thought about that a whole lot when I first started designing the game. Actually, I just want to ask Sam a quick question. Did you side with your friends or did you side with Mac?
Mac.
Okay. Yeah, just curious.
Mac did save my life. Okay. So.
Did. Yeah. All right. So I wasn't really.
No, but this is interesting. This is interesting. We'll get to the question of audience, but I like this little moment of dialogue. It's going to be an easy read. Can I ask Sam to read it?
Sure.
And then we'll get to the audience. Thanks,
Sarah, Haley, and Callum look out onto the sunset. Sarah looks very confused and slightly panicked. I think I'm going to head back to the tent and rest. I'll walk with you. Oh, she'll be fine on her own, Callum. Haley, I didn't mean to. It's fine. She gives a tight smile. Really? Okay, well, I'll see you guys later.
Yeah, so this is how phrasing was slightly different based on a choice that you made.
There's so many. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. One of Haley's conditions was not met.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So now we're in the village courtyard.
Yeah. So this is kind of more of like a classic gameplay setting for me, at least as I imagined it, where you have different things that you could approach. And in this version, I had to. I don't know why I said we. There's always an extra person. It seems like. But
we in your collective consciousness.
Yeah. Had to write it as if these, objects were just laying around and people could approach them as they were playing. Yeah.
Great. Okay, let's get back to that notion of audience.
Yeah. So I had no clue who the audience was for up until I started, or who the audience was going to be, up until I started playtesting the game. And one of the first people that I had playtest was my best friend, and seeing her reactions in playing the game to my tone of voice, the characters' tone of voice, the choices that I supplied, and like the things that happened, it very much kind of solidified the idea that this was obviously, or not obviously, or it seemed obvious. Seems obvious now. It's written for my age group, pretty much. And I had my mom and like family play this, and they enjoyed it, but I don't think it was quite. It didn't have the same hallmark reactions or conceptual ideas and birth of thought in the same way, because this is very much. From Sarah's perspective, she's a relatively recent grad. She's still trying to figure out her way in the world, and that I don't know, I'm about to graduate myself.
Big mood.
Big mood. It
In 2 days, really.
in 2 days, yeah. I think it resonates with our age group in a way that someone like my mom, who years and years past graduation has figured her life out, isn't going to resonate in the same way.
I want to jump into Sam's experience again and see what kind of choices Sam is making. Can you describe this moment that you're in right now, Sam?
Yeah, I mean, so right now, I'm, out just amidst like all the action happening at Burning Man and just seeing a lot of different things going on. So I've decided to do a couple of the things that I was interested in. I was like, yeah, I like art. So I had Sarah look at the art, and then I was like, yeah, I like popcorn. So I had her look at the popcorn, but then I decided not to get any. And now there's some commotion, which I was interested to see if what would be happening there, but it looks like Sarah doesn't like conflict, so we're gonna walk away. But
how do you know Sarah doesn't like conflict?
I mean, so far, so the tiny instances where I personally made the decision at certain points that we're gonna stay away from conflict, and I feel like it's made an impact. I'm not sure. There was the time I decided to, push back in a situation, and then I died. So.
Aha, so cause and effect is happening here. So cause and effect. You've learned from your experiences so far, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
So you can walk away.
What the heck?
Let's see.
So if you're just joining us, we are live streaming the senior culminating project of Elinor Dooley, who is graduating in, can we say, a day and a half? Possibly. And we can certainly enjoy the game that she has made called Existential Bummer, which is a kind of, I guess we could say, time traveling game that is written out like a script. So it is a script-based dialogue game that takes about an hour and a half to go through the entire thing. So obviously we're not going through the entire thing right now, but we are asking our great player, Sam West, theater department at Dartmouth College, to play through a chapter of this experience just to get a sense of the richness and the kind of the non-linearity, even though the story is quite rich. It also has a depth to it because there are choices and one can go back and return again and again to certain kinds of moments. Julie, I have a question for you. So is that to you what games are? Like, what, for you, why a game instead of a film? Why a game instead of doing it as a straight screenplay?
Right. I think games provide such a unique opportunity for engagement that movies don't really have. Bandersnatch was, I haven't watched or played it, but it was really popular for a reason because people got to choose how the movie turned out. It was a movie that they were engaged in and involved in. And what really excites me about games is that the choices or the allowance for choice, even if it's not like a non-linear choice-based game like this, but something where like you're choosing your plan of attack or you're choosing how you want to explore a certain area, simple things like that, that level of involvement really kind of pulls you in and sucks you into the story and helps you get to know the characters more and get to know their struggle and their plight, where they're coming from and why they're doing things. At least that's how I view games and my hope for games. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. We have a question from one of our viewers, and that is, what kind of games influenced you when you were making this game? What kind of experiences, cultural experience? You mentioned Bandersnatch. Like what games have actually been a part of your influential circle?
Yeah. I actually drew a lot of inspiration from my favorite game, Life is Strange, and the prequel, Life is Strange Before the Storm. It has a similar kind of structure where there's a lot of branching things. They do it much better since they're much more practiced at it. But I took a lot of inspiration from that. Though those games tend to focus on like larger decisions kind of panning out in the long run. With this, I really tried to focus on it's more the smaller choices that you make in life that can really affect you. So you'll find that a lot of the big decisions that you have don't necessarily affect one of the like 4 possible endings that you can get at the end of the game. Other games that influenced me, The Last of Us, also a great game, but in a different way. It's a linear storyline. You don't have any story-based choice in it, but I think it was the first time that I played a game and really felt for the characters and really, really connected with them. I remember finishing the game and having to sit for 2 hours by myself just to kind of decompartmentalize and like think about what I had just witnessed and like really kind of honestly been involved in, and how that changed me and changed the way that I not only thought about how games worked, but also thought about more philosophical stuff. But yeah, 2 hours I sat by myself thinking about that game.
We have another audience question. I'm gonna just give over to the audience. This looks great. Is it posted somewhere where we can play it?
Not yet, but it can be once I've gotten it fully fixed and all the bugs and stuff in later chapters are figured out. But yeah,
you will share it with us. You will share it with us.
I won't even charge anyone anything.
Thank you. That's kind. Not yet. Not yet. One of our viewers says, "I like the name Existential Bummer. Did you have other names you considered seriously? And yes, why this name? Talk about this name."
The name came a while ago to the idea, a year ago, or it kind of came from this. I like philosophy and kind of why we feel this constant existential dread as we go through life. And there's this one really, really good video I love by Jason Silva called Existential Bummer. And in it, he talks about the nature of life and the ephemerality of it and how down decay and become nuts. And that's just the natural order of. So what I kind of took was, yeah, that's a bummer, but we've got to make the best of the life, as corny as that sounds. Like, what else are you going to do? Sit around, dust collect on you? I don't think that's the right way to go about things. We're here and we're lucky here. And that was, it probably clicked through quickly, but in the beginning of this chapter, there was a quote by Richard Dawkins, and he talks about a thing about life is that there were essentially millions of possible human combinations that could have occurred, and yet here we are living this life. And yes, it's still sucky, and yes, there's so many things still going wrong with the world, but we're still here, and we got to make the most of it, I guess.
Okay, all right. Can I check back in with Sam as a player? So where are you now? What have you decided? What have you been doing?
Okay, so I was like looking around and everything going on, and then I went to my tent, read a little.
Remember, there might be some new viewers. So where are you again, and who are you in this game?
Hi, I'm Sam West, and I'm playing Julie's game, Existential Bummer. And this character, Sarah Coates, is at Burning Man, and my character has died, but then time went back, and I was alive again and did things a little bit differently. So I'm a little shaky from that. And then I, come to like the liveliness of Burning Man, and I decide to go like take a nap in my tent. But when I wake up again, I'm like I've gone back in time to, looking at all the commotion happening at Burning Man. So this time I decided to talk to the mechanic, which I didn't do the last time. And the mechanic lost a tool, we think, with Dr. Popcorn. So I'm going back to Dr. Popcorn with some new information that I'm very excited about. Let's see. Toolbox. Have you seen a toolbox around?
Okay.
Yeah. So when I was writing this whole thing, I came up with like the main core story, and then I added all of the other side conversations and everything afterwards. And it was so stressful, but also so much fun to kind of layer in these different hints at different parts of the story, or things that you learn later might only maybe never even find out, depending on how you play. It was a lot of fun. It was like hiding Easter eggs for the player to find.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing, isn't it, about games? It's like, how do you actually live with the fact that you could make a lot of content as a game designer that a player might never see?
Oh, live with.
Do you know what I mean about that? Like, you might make whole sequences and stories that someone may never encounter, or they may encounter but on their third or fourth play.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it's hard to put all your work into this baby, and you want people to experience the whole thing. I think range experience, and it becomes when you put that time in, or as a player, it becomes more special when you put the time in to figure out all these hidden stories. Whenever I played games, that was exactly what I did. I would go in the exact opposite direction of to go for the final quest or whatever, and I'd see what else I could find. Designer, I think that's part of what makes it so different or something. You watch the full movie, the more objects that you didn't know had certain significance, but in games these could be literal experiences that you're missing out on, and those kinds of things. But I think it's more of a fun thing than I would expect. It's not so much of an annoyance that people might not see these. It's kind of more like if someone does see it and they bring it up to me, I'm like, oh, you did it.
That's right. Like, you found the secret thing. Because if they found, they would have to find some key moments. Otherwise, they probably wouldn't be able to finish the game, right? So you do have to guide people that way, right?
Yeah.
We have some more comments. I'm loaded with questions too. So there's a lot of interest in this. Here's one. I think I can identify this person as Professor Jody Mack, who is saying congratulations on this game. And after this, you plan to go into writing, gaming, filmmaking, somewhere in between. What's your dream job from this project on?
Yeah, I've been thinking about this a lot.
Because you're graduating in 2 days.
Yeah. It's weird. I actually came in as a biology major, but quickly realized that was not really what I was interested in. I think what's always driven me is my love for storytelling. And when I decided to no longer be a biology major, I really had to sit down and think about what I was going to do with my life and what I was really passionate about. So I thought about what I do on the day-to-day that I really enjoy. And at that time, it was playing video games. And I was like, well, why don't I just do that? So that was kind of where my plan started, to eventually join a video game company, not in the development side, but on the design side. So not doing coding or things like that, but working on the narrative story and the characters and things like that. But being at Dartmouth and fully going through the process of my modified major, I started really, really loving film production, and especially editing and all the work and process that goes through that and the fun times that I've had. So I think I'm torn between kind of going into the film industry
Well, maybe at some point there isn't really much of a separation after all. Right?
Yeah. So, I mean, in Mary's class, I took it sometime in the spring, I think my sophomore year, spring.
Yeah.
She brought in a lot of different people. Sorry, I'm watching Sam play. And she died again.
So wait, hold on to that thought, Sam.
I went to a game at Burning Man, and I was playing the game, a shooting game, and I missed the targets and I messed up, and I think I shot an angel in the face, which, makes me think of God and life and death. And then I'm back again.
Wait. Before you click, can you hold on for just a second? I know you really want to see what happens. But I do. There's so many questions, actually. Yeah. And I would love to just, we'll just give you a little bit of a break. And I want to ask, there's two suggestions. Have you considered submitting this to Burning Man, Dooley? And are you going to submit it to the Boston Festival of Independent Games next year? So those are two really good kind of questions about venues, which, considering you're graduating in a short period of time, might be the next thing. Have you been thinking that far ahead?
I have not been thinking that far ahead. I don't know. I don't think it's at a state where it's ready for that yet. I mean, Boston Festival of Indie Games, BFIG, happens in the fall, so I guess I do have time, though. I think applications are probably about now. But I actually haven't really thought about it.
We can think about that. I'll pester you about that.
No, it's something we're thinking about. Submitting it to Burning Man, I'm not sure. I think I took a fair number of liberties with the way that Burning Man works. I did a lot of research on it, and I was lucky enough to know a few people that have been there, so they helped me kind of confirm or deny certain things. But it's really pretty hard to find information on Burning Man. It's a very tight-knit community, and I think my worry with submitting it to Burning Man would be that I would be misrepresenting the group, which is, I don't know, maybe I am just kind of co-opting the location too much, and I should pay it back a bit more. But that would be my main concern.
Okay. We have some questions about what do you like and dislike about using Twine as a storytelling tool, but maybe we could go with Sam through this initial sequence, because this is where we start, right? This is kind of the beginning of the cycle, and maybe Sam could read out in case anyone has any artifacting on their stream what this says. Again, if you're just joining us, Elinor Dooley's culminating project, Dartmouth College Film and Media Studies. This is a game called Existential Bummer.
Yeah, and I'm Sam West, and I'm playing this game. I'm waking up in the bathroom and groan in frustration as the character Sarah. I went to the scaffolding last time again.
Can I pop in real quick and talk about just the post-it kind of design, because it was kind of an important choice for me to kind of curb player annoyance, because otherwise you would just be playing from the very beginning of the game over and over again, which is maybe a truer experience, but would be so incredibly frustrating. And as someone that has play tested that version, it is so frustrating. So I kind of conceived of this idea of post-it, the player keeping post-it notes in the bathroom that she shows up in, so that we could keep track of kind of the major places that you've been, and kind of jump back into the story then, with all the choices that you've made intact.
Yeah.
So are we going to go to one, or are we just going to leave the bathroom?
I kind of want to see a new place, but the thing is, I got a cool knife last time that I feel like will come in handy. I'm just gonna go.
Oh, okay. There we go.
No,
you didn't do anything wrong. There's no wrong choices in this.
Okay.
Wrong is relative. So let's talk about this
Oh,
format and using Twine as a storytelling tool. What do you like or dislike about Twine? You want to just talk a little bit about Twine? And you've also been a TA in the game design class at Dartmouth College, which uses the Twine tool as well. So you've had a lot of experience helping others too. So why don't you just unpack that a little bit?
I think this past term has been really interesting because I originally wrote the game in a scripting software that allowed me to branch things out, and then I had to kind of import it all into Twine, which took a lot of time. But Twine was really helpful in allowing me to keep track of all the different variables, for example, the number of times that you die, and then the choices that you make and true or false, things like that. I don't think I have like any real frustrations with Twine. And I think a lot of my learning this term actually came from me being a TA and learning as I go with the students very much. So as they were trying to figure out Twine and really doing super cool things with it, I would kind of be like, oh yeah, that's cool. I'm going to figure out how to do that. Or I was helping them with certain questions that they had, I would learn even more myself. Whether or not I like Twine and I would use it again, yeah, definitely. I mean, it's free. It's great for creating branching dialogue and ideas, and it's really easy to use once you eventually get
into it. Yeah, once you get into it. And Sam, what has happened to you?
I messed up the shooting game again, but I feel like I can get it right.
And how do you feel that? How do you know?
I feel like there's maybe like a sequence to which ones I have to hit, or maybe
you're feeling out your clues. You're feeling the intuition somehow from the design choices that were made and how this is sculpted. Well, if you're just joining us, we've lost Julie, but Julie will be back to join us for the exploration of Existential Bummer, culminating project at Film and Media Studies at Dartmouth College. And we're here with Sam West, who is the player of Existential Bummer on behalf of Julie, who is just kind of going through one chapter of about an hour and a half long experience of in a way, an interactive script-based game that could easily then, of course, be turned into a big three-dimensional world with animation and graphics and everything else. But the core of the actual game and the decisions and dialogue, character development, all of the story is really right in there. Do you feel that, Sam? Can you feel the story? Does it feel like you're playing a game even though it's just text?
No, it definitely does. Like, I'm trying, because there's been, in addition to, whatever decisions I make, there's little moments of like, oh, like every moment leads you to like who you are now. And just like hints like that throughout that kind of make it exciting because I'm kind of wondering where it'll end up.
Yes. And that really is the power of a game, right? Is that ability to kind of keep you motivated, keep you exploring, keep your engagement, right? Right. That's kind of how they develop. So we've been talking with Dooley, Elinor Dooley, who is graduating in a short series of days, as is Sam, the player of this game. Relief sings from many corners, and we're just waiting for Julie to rejoin us so we can continue the last part of our conversation about games. Julie was talking a little bit about how being a TA in the game design class at Dartmouth really did actually contribute to the way one could consider games themselves, as well as the technical challenges and the technical feats. So that's really exciting to hear. I was hoping that it wasn't just a job. But Wes, I guess one of the things I'd like to bring up, since we're waiting for the maker, is this notion of why, what about games is really important right now. Some people talk about this being the ludic century. that almost every century might have an art form, 18th and 19th century painting, 20th century might be a film and photography centered, new technologies, emerging technologies, and perhaps the next art form, judging especially by its popularity right now, would be games, and not just computer games, board games, card games, sports, esports, and then we have games like this, which are hybrid versions of media that we might not have even imagined would be popular or would exist. There's an entire movement of artists and writers, game designers using Twine. A big move from the LGBTQ community about telling new stories. The tool is free, it's accessible, it doesn't require specialized knowledge, it doesn't require specialized teams or huge budgets, and suddenly you can make quite interesting and complex works with a very, very simple starting point. And that's one of the powers of using a tool like this one, and we still have seen from Sam's walkthrough that you can still get a very, very engaged media experience in something that is put together relatively straightforwardly. Now, I'm looking if we have any other questions, because I certainly have some, but we need to have Julie come back. I see that there is a valiant effort to be relogging in. This is an interesting time. If one does not have the best internet connection, as we know, these notions of equity and access to technology do limit what we can actually do together. So hopefully we'll be able to have Julie come back for the last few minutes of our discussion together. But I want to go back to this game in particular. Where are you? Sarah has this necklace. How did Sarah get this necklace?
Yeah, so I went over to our tent, like where me and my friends are staying in the game, and I've been to this tent before, and I looked at my journal one time in the past. This time I thought I'd take a look at the necklace, just to see what's there, because I've kind of been just exploring around. Yeah, this is I want to say the third or fourth time I've been kind of in this area of the game, and I'm trying to peek around, kind of discover new avenues. See what's there.
Julie, is the necklace useful?
The necklace? No.
Okay.
It's useful for character information. Yeah, you're really actually only like halfway through this chapter.
Oh no! Okay, what did I do? Okay, let's.
Oh, it's just you're playing the game. That's what you're supposed to do.
Okay.
Yeah. And we can kind of you read really fast, so it's really good. Julie, I have just a few more questions for you as we wrap up your kind of walkthrough and discussion about games and your own process here. Why games now for you? You had to change a lot of things to become a major and to change your life goals.
Yeah. So how did I end up choosing this as my passion?
Yeah, and what do you think it means to other people? What do you think games really mean to us?
Oh, well, I think going back to my love for storytelling, I think the best stories are, I've said it before, best stories are those that you can really feel yourself getting involved and engaged in. And as a kid, I'm an only child, so games were kind of how I experienced stories and how I spent a lot of my time alone, especially because I moved really often to different countries and stuff, so it was hard to start up with new friends. But games always provided some kind of emotional engagement for me. And I think that's what I really wanted to share with people is being able to not necessarily change how they think. I think that's obvious. It's a very difficult thing to do, but at least change how they feel for a moment or get them thinking about different ways that you could conceptualize an idea or feel about something.
And can I just ask you, on a personal note, about your process and going through this? How I mean, it's difficult enough to do a culminating project. Just want to see if you had any reflections on doing this project in this time, with all the things that we're going through.
Yeah, I think, I mean, I guess this is perfect time to shout out Black Lives Matter and everything that's going on. Police brutality is a big thing. We're all dealing with a lot of stuff. And a lot of us have been dealing with this stuff for centuries and as long as this country has existed. And I honestly wish that I had kind of focused myself more on certain topics, but I think that it kind of comes down to simplicity in design. There are a lot of different things that I'm passionate about and ideas and things going on that are really, really important for us to talk about. And I think with my other work in film, I've tried to address that, but I kind of didn't address, or I addressed different aspects of things that are really important to me this time with this game. But so stepping back, I think it's hard for me to not just kind of put all the things that I'm passionate about and all the things that I want people to consider and think about into one single experience. I think then the message kind of gets muddled. For why this game right now, it came during a time where my and a lot of my friends' main concern was what we're going to do once we graduate. And it came after I was very involved in another project where I kind of dug deep into murdered and missing Indigenous women. So it was kind of the rollback from that. But I think I struggled a lot with keeping a kind of streamlined story and not delving too much into different things that are very important for everybody to talk about.
But there are some things that you really did push. For example, there's a lot of like kind of inappropriate. There are some characters who act inappropriately towards women, and there's like there are situations that you brought to bear on in the game that become part of the fabric of the universe in which your character lives, right?
Yeah, I mean, going back to your question of why I love storytelling and why games or stories themselves provide such a unique opportunity is because I get to share or raise awareness for certain concepts. And those concepts can manifest themselves in small ways or in big ways in games. And I think I tried really hard to kind of give points of consideration in this story that weren't just towards the message of live life to its fullest, don't live monotonously, find something to be passionate about. I tried to still insert really important things for myself into this.
That's great. Well, where are we now, Sam?
All right, so it's a little bit later in the day. I just went to the doctor with my friend Haley to talk about this. I keep waking up in the bathroom. I've died and come back. Doctor thought I was a little bit crazy. And Haley, I tried to convince her, but she didn't believe me. So she's gone off, and I'll meet up with her later. And now just exploring Burning Man again, and I'm talking to Meg now. Who is in need of some help, it seems, perhaps.
So you can make a choice here. Huh? Yes. All right. And
yeah, I keep trying to tell people. I hope she listens to me.
No spoilers, Julie.
I'll try not to. It's hard to keep my face stoic while people are playing.
Well, I can't see your face, so I have no idea.
Brilliant.
All right. I've looked at Meg.
Mary, what are your thoughts on games and their engagement and what their purpose is?
Well, I think that like storytelling, like music, like visual art, games represent a kind of art form. Humans have played board games longer than they've had written language. Animals play. There's a lot of play, and play has particular kinds of properties and characteristics. For example, it has to be set apart from everyday life. When animals play, they know they're not actually in trouble, right? So it's separate from what the situation would be in real life. There's often a conflict. Doesn't necessarily have to be fighting. It could be a resources issue. It could be humans and nature conflict. It could be a spiritual conflict, as in the case of the history of Snakes and Ladders, which was originally a spiritual game. So you have these really long-term human connections to play and to games as forms of spirituality and divination also. So as we use them now and we play them now, those connections I don't believe are really severed, and they may take new forms, computer games, 3D games using certain kinds of tropes that we learn. But again, some of the kind of assumptions about what a game is really do date back centuries, if not millennia. So in that way, I think that games are really a part of the human condition. And they have a lot to teach us in terms of how we think about conflict, how we solve problems, how they become models of worlds for us. So for me, right now, I think we need games because we have a lot of complexity, and we have a lot of complexity for problems that really seem intractable, actually. Really difficult problems. And I think that's going to require new kinds of problem solving. And my hope is that games may help us move in that direction to provide play spaces for understanding and shaping the world we really want. So, so for me, it's a big deal, but you know that. You go to class. You went to class. All right, so we only have 3 minutes left. Does anyone have? We've got some hearts and some nice icons. I don't exactly know what that icon is. It's a purple something. Maybe it is a video game character. Yes.
Yep.
It's a Vader, some kind of Vader icon. That's really nice. We've got some hearts. So I guess I'll leave the last word to you, Julie, and then we will go on with some more film and media studies events all night, or most of the night.
I don't know if I have
anything you want to say. Do you want to reflect on your Dartmouth experience right now?
No. No. With 2 minutes left, I don't think we have time for that. Yeah, I think I would want my last message actually to not even really be about my game, but be about the importance of remaining open-minded. And I guess if I really tie it back into my game, about experiencing and understanding stories that aren't really your own. And so remaining open-minded in that. And also, I don't know, a large part of this game was thinking about how I think we have the ability to live exactly how we want and exactly how we imagine society or ideal society and ideal interactions with the world, which is this quote unquote living fully and what that looks like. And I think we have those capabilities, but for some reason we just continuously deny ourselves that. And that was part of this game of Sarah denying herself these opportunities because she thinks she has to fit a certain mold or things. So I think just being kind to each other, remaining open-minded and working towards everybody else's happiness. It's not a hard thing to do.
Thank you so much, Julie. Thank you so much, Sam. Thank you behind the scenes, Peter Chardelli of the Department of Film and Media Studies. We are out of time. We have a lot of congratulations in the chat. We have a lot of great work, Julie. Great to see this game come to fruition. All kinds of stuff. Proud of you. Exclamation points. And hope for your games that you want to play now. You're free from school. We have speculation on what you'll be doing after graduation. All kinds of things. I want to share a great round of virtual applause. We don't have hand icons here. Great work. Thank you so much, Sam West, for visiting us. Thank you, Julie, for showing your work and being brave to be on the spotlight. I'm Mary Flanagan from the Film and Media Studies Department at Dartmouth College. And next up, we've got more.